What is up, guys? Lord Nick here, bringing you another episode of the Dangerous Game Podcast. This is episode 10, guys. Hey, and I want to apologize ahead of time that I didn't give you guys a heads up that I was going to take last week off. It kind of became a last minute thing, but a lot happened in my last weekend. My grandmother went into the hospital due to a hernia in her abdomen, and apparently part of her intestine went necrotic, so she had to do an emergency surgery. Um, and my grandfather went to the hospital due to severe dehydration. I had to work two really long shifts right before Saturday, so Saturday was like my only day to decompress. And I didn't get off until like 4 in the morning on Friday night, so I was extremely tired and just decided, you know what, we're going to take the week off from the podcast. And then as for the Clutch Gaming thing, about 2 weeks ago, that I didn't end up doing the Clutch report at the end of the last LCS week, and I didn't do that one just simply because I was running out of time. I mean, that Monday I opened and didn't get out until like 8 in the afternoon. I came home, ate dinner, and just sat down to watch an episode or two of Star Trek before I decided to do the episode, and actually fell asleep. So by Tuesday I was getting ready for work and realizing I hadn't done it, and I was just like, all right, well, I guess we'll just summarize that week as well in the podcast. So I mean, I've debated it. We're just gonna like it was a good week, guys. It was a one and they went 1-1. And in short, guys, they are shoring up a lot of their problems, a lot of their mistakes. They are making a few here or there still, but I think that the team is going to do real well in the end. I think Clutch is going to be a good either middle of the pack team, and they have a real good shot of making playoffs right now. A lot of those top end teams are showing a lot more mistakes, uh, so it should be interesting. Um, but the big focus this podcast is going to have, guys, is today we are going to be talking about TFT. As many of you probably could have guessed, the game went live on the league's client about I don't know, about right after what should have been the last podcast, and it has been a very fun game mode to play. And I want to talk about the ramifications that come from it. Is this going to be a game that replaces the primary game of League? Is this going to be healthy for the League environment? Do you think that there's going to be a lot of problems with the client because it's going to be running two games? And these are some of the big questions that some people have asked. Big questions as for how because people always want to know what's going to kill League. So I think we're going to touch up on that topic easily. And then I think we want to talk a little bit about Rift Rivals, though, before we get into the TFT topic. Just due to the fact that, like, some stupid things happen at Rift Rivals. And let's go over it real quick. So first off, Team Liquid looked Team Liquid-esque. Like, they didn't do terrible, but they weren't easily the best. They weren't the best team at the tournament. Um, but they were looking good, so that's a good thing to see. They were able to beat G2. They couldn't beat Fnatic, and I think Fnatic shored up a lot of their weaknesses from Spring Split. So I think they might actually be a very real contender against G2 right now. They have a good chance of making G2 second opposed to first. Um, on other notes from what happened at Rift Rivals, TSM just looked like trash. Like TSM did not impress me in the slightest. They were playing with their main roster. They were playing. Um, it is. I don't know. It just didn't look good, right? Like they didn't play very well. Um, and I think that in the end, it's going to come down to what went wrong for TSM, and I think it just comes down to the fact that they are not confident in their game. It's not that they don't have their own style. They're a very slow, methodical team that's going to grind you out of the game, but they're not confident with it. And I think they lack the confidence to be that number one, number two team outside of the domestic area. And that's how TSM has always failed, is they don't play with conviction, they don't play with their playstyle in international events. And so I think TSM is just going to be a laughingstock again. I think, our world's teams very likely right now are going to be TSM, uh, TL, Team Liquid, and Cloud9. No particular order there, but I mean, Team Liquid is probably going to be number one. Ugh, sorry about the yawning. I'm still really tired. Team Liquid's probably going to be number one. It's pretty obvious, right? Like, they are our best team definitively. And then you have Cloud9, who is starting to look a little bit shaky, actually. In all honesty, I think they're looking a little shaky. I'm not 100% sure as to why their team's starting to look so shaky. They have a very solid, strong roster, but I think that they are at a point right now where they're confused on how to beat Team Liquid, so they're trying to play a different game. And it might just be that their core players is really good, and it might just be that they are just struggling to understand how do they play their own game and not play Liquid's game. Um, but as for Rift Rivals' performance from Cloud9, it's about as good as you could have expected. Sneaky was sick and out for health reasons, and then they just put Bleiber into Phil, and it was neat. It was fun. It was goofy, but you could tell they weren't taking it all that seriously. Dang. Wow, I'm yawning a lot. I'm very, very sorry that this episode is not going to be to the same quality that some of the other ones have been. Anyhow, Rift Rivals, all in all, from the North American side of things, was not really all that great. I mean, they got a week off to just kind of goof off, I guess. Team Liquid didn't really goof, but, like, still a thing. The others, though, were definitely not so great. It's not so great for like EU though, right? These EU guys get to come over here and then they don't get to play against the best. Um, and then they get to be jet lagged and waste a week. 1 second, guys. I lost where I was on my page. Ah, there we are. Sorry. Um, so these guys coming from Europe, they had Team Liquid to play against, and that's it. Team Liquid got to play against three different uh, teams and strategies from EU, but EU only got to really play against Team Liquid. So really, there's no great, win here for EU. Oh, cool, we won Rift Rivals, yay! They didn't really have to do anything, and they didn't learn anything from it. They didn't gain anything from it other than being tired. Upside is they have a week off next week, so they don't have to go back to the game immediately, or this week, I guess, because Rift Rivals was last week. So this week they're off. So, I mean, they get to spend time just decompressing, getting back into the zone of things. So, let's start with TFT, guys. Why is TFT so popular? So TFT is going to be very popular as streamers find it very fun. Dota Auto Chess, if you hadn't been paying attention, was a very interesting game mode. It was something that was new. It was innovative for how simple it was. There was a lot of complexities, and that is fun. That leads to a lot of cool things that could happen. So if that's the case, then why, if Dota Auto Chess is so popular, why did people just drop it for TFT? And TFT added in elements that made it a lot more easy to grasp. For one, it was made by people who spoke English, so the primary speaker base of it, the player base can be English speakers at that point. There's not a lot of hard, rough translations, and there's not a really poor UI system and hub for the game because it's not a mod of a game; it's its own game. It's TFT just had better timing. It got somebody came up with the concept, and like Riot does, they didn't have to come up with a whole hell of a lot new things. They just had to make it their own. And they did. They definitely did, and it came out with a lot more ease of access. It was the League of Legends to the Dota. It was easier for people to understand. It was its own thing. It stood alone by itself. It definitely did to Dota what League or it did to Auto Chess what League did to Dota. So it was, a very smart move, tactically by Riot on how they approached it and how they did things. And then if we move over to the idea of, well, is this going to be the game that kills League? I don't think it is. I don't think there's a chance in hell that this game replaces League. One, its rank system's not even out yet, and I can already tell you that there are players experiencing burnout. And then two, it's not as universally as like easy as League. And the biggest reason is understanding how to the economy system is very different, and then understanding what pieces are good in the early game, what pieces are good in the late game. What do I itemize on who? There are certain builds that are just extremely strong, but what if I don't get those builds? How do I win without them? There's a lot more strategy and there's a lot more nuance to it. And there's a lot less control. There is a lot more RNG, but controlling RNG is a big aspect of the game. So if that's the case, it's going to require a lot more a lot more thought process, and a lot more of a understanding of how to use items when you are not getting the items you think you need to carry. So that's going to make it a lot less accessible. The overall ease of it opens it up for more people to come play it, but the idea of the core concepts of the game are still very more they're much more complex. They're much more of a strategy game, and not everybody that plays League plays it for strategy. Obviously, there are people that play for the macro fun of League, which is being able to just like one-shot people and go hard ham and show them the mechanics you have of the game. This game really doesn't have that much to a mechanics side of it. It has much more to a strategy side of it. So if that's the case, the tactical aspect of the game might be off-putting to people who are not tactically minded. So that being the case, no, I don't think this game has any chance in hell of killing League. I do think it has a ability to steal away some of the potential player base of League, the more tactically minded folk who are having a very difficult time playing through solo queue might find themselves playing it more often, myself included. But I don't think it's going to destroy the League fan base either way. I'm going to be playing between the two games quite often. Whenever I'm, kind of tilting off of ranked solo queue, I'm just going to move over to TFT and start playing the ranked TFT. Like, it's super easy for me to, still be competitive, but switch to a completely different style of game that I don't think I'm going to have nearly as large of an attachment to. So, if we're looking at its ability to stand the test of time, do I think TFT is going to last forever, or is this just just a fast, a flash in the pan craze? And that's going to be a very difficult one to tell. It really depends on what other auto battlers come out, how different they are, and how well they do. Along with the fact that I don't know. It's a very hard thing to theorize because League of Legends could have just been that flash in the pan, and it didn't. So it's going to come down to Riot's support of it. Are there going to be good tournaments? Is there going to be a league scene? How is it going to work? Is there going to be a competitive scene for it? And if there is, do you think that's going to help encourage people to stick around, or is it going to be something like the Hearthstone scene, where it's extremely popular depending on the tournament and who's showing up to the tournament and who's hosting the tournament, or is it going to be or is it going to be something like maybe the CS:GO scene that's where again it's each individual tournament changes depending on who's there and who's hosting and who's casting and who's providing all of the viewerships the tools for viewers. And if that's the case, it could be destined to die or it could be destined to grow. It's such a different genre as well that it's going to be much like a MOBA at the beginning. We didn't know if MOBAs were going to be a flash in the pan, craze, or if they were going to hold up like they did, for 10 years now. Uh, so we're still going to have to wait on that one. I don't think I have any uh, logical path to conclude that it's going to be this this super high tier game mode, or if it's going to just be something that people just go to on occasion, where it has a niche following of people just to who just like the idea of the game mode. Um, and then lastly, we still needed to talk about how is this going to affect the client health and the game health for League of Legends. And like I said, it's not going to kill the viewer base or the fan base of League. Really, I think it's gonna, if do anything, it's gonna encourage more people to come back to League of Legends. But I do think that having two games on the same client, with the client the way that it's set up for League, might not be the healthiest. So, like, Battle.net is a client that hosts multiple games, but the premise of it is that you load a game from the client, and then you load a game match within the game, not from the client itself. The client houses the primary game, you then jump into it. And that's kind of what the League patcher should do, I guess, in that regard. So, like, when we go into the patcher, it's like sign in to TFT or sign in to League. I think that would be a much better way to do it, in which then you have two separate servers. You don't use you have two separate hubs of servers so that you're not using the same servers that you're using for League. So in case one game goes down, it doesn't affect the other one immediately, or vice versa. It's not gonna, I guess they could separate it onto separate servers on the same hub to save on money and space, but like I think that just asks for more problems to happen. And how do we know that bugs from one game won't just cause problems to the other game if they're on the same servers? I mean, yes, programming wise, that's not usually how programming works, but this is a situation that Riot has done in the past where, like, hey, stuff was happening to Dominion and it still affected having to disable stuff in actual League of Legends. Like, there was, and stuff that's happened in threes in the past has actually gotten stuff that happened to be disabled in the 5v5 game mode. Like, the other game modes have affected each other in the past, and if this is going to be a standalone, new game that Riot's going to be implementing on their client, they should probably institute either a second client or a second login on the patcher so that people can choose which game they're going to play, just to kind of differentiate the two. On top of it, I think when the game itself comes out of the beta mode that it's kind of in now, and gets confirmed to be the long game type that they want it to be, and they add a ranked for it, the ranked, I think, alone is gonna encourage a lot of people to play it. Even people that are like, oh, this is terrible. They're gonna want to prove that it's terrible by becoming really good at it, and then they're gonna get real frustrated at it, and they're gonna do one of two things. They're gonna become hard ingrained in having to play it to prove their point that they can't prove, or they're going to quit. So, I mean, we're going to either have, like I said, it's either going to become that super flash in the pan, or it's going to become something that's super addicted by most people who play it very angrily, to try to prove a point that they can't actually prove. And I think this is good, but I think it's also just going to be bad for the client health. I think there's going to end up with queue times. I think it's going to end up with login queue times, which is never fun. I think there's just going to be a lot of overloading on the servers, and so if that's the case, we could see some problems in the near future. We already saw it in the beta when there was a ton of people. In the near future, when the rank launches, it's going to happen again. Sure, it's probably going to die back down, but who's to tell that if you increased server capacities, that it wouldn't hold at that for a while. When there's not that long of a queue time, there was a lot more people playing it. So I think that there is a lot that Riot can do in the future to maximize on the number of players that they are managing to grab, and for the health of the client and the other games thereof. Because if you want more people to come play, one of the easiest things you can do is making it two separate clients, due to the fact that you would then probably have people who it's like, oh, TFT is got a queue time again because there's a ton of people trying to play it. You know what? Let me just play a game of League while I'm waiting. And if they did that, I think they could maximize on two markets, because I spent my time playing Overwatch when I was waiting for that 1.5 hour queue pop. I'm not even kidding. Me and my buddies decided, just for the just for hell of it, we were just going to sit in the queue and see how long it actually took. And then we jumped into playing Overwatch until it happened, which was over an hour and a half on the queue. And it was kind of fun. It was goofy and it was really fun. But if we had the option to play League, we probably would have played League while we were waiting for it. But we can't, because it's the same client. So, I mean, if you do that, you'll have two different audiences that share a love for two different games that you have made. Alright, guys, that's kind of been my quick rant on everything. This hasn't been that great of a video, I don't think, or that enlightening of a video, really. I mean, it's But I'm kind of running low on ideas. Just FYI, 10 podcast episodes in, and I'm trying to avoid talking about the LCS every week. So if that's the case, guys, and you want to hear stuff that isn't LCS related, please give me ideas as to what that might be. If you want my long TED Talk rant styles things on specific champions, specific items, build path. I don't know. Give me ideas, guys. I am unfortunately not super creative when it comes to coming up with ideas to talk about here, and I'm kind of burning in terms of that last of that midnight oil, trying to figure out some things to talk about each week. I'd love to keep doing these videos as long as I have ideas to talk about. I will do so. So leave a comment down below as to what you might want to see in the next video. And thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. And I hope you still enjoyed this video for all the yawns and pauses and weird, rant choices that I did today. And I hope to see you all in the next video. And have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful day.